Hi, I'm Chris McBrien, a Gen Xer, and the pop culture from my generation is awesome.
And I'm Yancy Eaton, a millennial, and the pop culture from my generation is dope.
Episode 74, Back to the Future Movie Review. Chris McBrien here, along with Yancy Eaton. It's Pop Goes Your World. Yancy, what's new in the world of pop for you, my young friend?
Not a lot. Last episode, I mentioned that I was reading John Steinbeck's classic East of Eden. I have since finished it.
And what's the conclusion on this?
It's good, and Steinbeck's really smart, or was really smart, a lot smarter than I'll ever be. And this was a book, I guess, that he had written much later in life, so he had already put out tons of classics, like you had mentioned Grapes of Wrath and Of Mice and Men, and countless other just amazing American literary classics. And I was just so blown away by it that I went out and just bought like a whole bunch of his books off the internet, and like they're going to start showing up, and I'm just going to keep tackling them one after the other. In between them. In between those books coming back in, I'm picking up The Catcher in the Rye, which I've never actually read. I know a lot of people read it in high school and stuff. I haven't.
It's so good, man. It's so good.
I've seen memes and stuff about it, which basically kind of poke fun at it, saying that like if you could sum up the book in one sentence, it's just white people problems. I don't know how true that is or not, but I know it's a classic, and I know a lot of people really enjoy the book. So regardless if I enjoy it or not, I like to expose myself to as much stuff like that as I possibly can. And man, I can't say enough. I'm not articulating exactly why I loved East of Eden so much, but it was just such a fantastic, just absolutely phenomenal book. And I can't wait to read Grapes of Wrath. I think that's going to be the first of the next Steinbeck books I'm going to read. But what's new with you, Chris?
So just on an aside there, from your books you're talking about, I think The Grapes of Wrath is one of the top probably 3 greatest American novels ever written. You're going to love it. You're going to love it, man. It's right up there. I think Moby Dick is good too, but oh man. Oh, it's so good. You'll love it. Before we came on the air, you and I were just kibitzing back and forth, and you were humming a theme song. Do you want to hum that theme song for me?
The Come and Knock on My Door.
Yes, so you obviously know where that's from. It's from Three's Company, right? Have you ever seen that show?
Maybe bits and pieces once or twice, Chris. It's like roommates might have had it on like in the past or something, but I've never actually sat down and watched a full episode, I don't think.
So it's funny that by the way, it's a great sitcom. It's classic. Mm-hmm. It's funny that you know the theme from a show, but you don't even really know the show without really having seen the show. It's amazing. We'll have to do a show on TV themes at some point in the future. What's new with me? I've got some interesting things for you, my friends. So I watched 2 movies in the last week, and you're going to love this one. So one was a millennial film, and one was a Gen X film. And Yancy, I don't know, you might be proud of me on this one. So, okay, the millennial movie first. It was one I'd never seen. And the Gen X movie was one I'd seen before, and also one that I loved as a kid. The millennial film was Lady Bird. Have you seen that?
I haven't. I know it got tons of Oscar hype, but I haven't watched it yet.
It stars Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf, and man, it was fantastic. Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. It's like about... Like, I'm not going to ruin it for anybody. Like, it's like a coming of age movie. Like, it's about social status and relationships and friendships. And kind of at the center of it all is this fractured relationship between this teenage girl and her mother. It's a really good movie, man. Really good. And then on the flip side of things, I had my son watch a personal favorite from my youth, Yancy. When I was a kid, I absolutely loved, and I've said this before on the show, I loved the TV show Battlestar Galactica. Like, I just loved it. And the 2-hour pilot episode was actually, what they did was they actually released it in theaters as a movie, right? And I loved it as a kid. And so I had my son watch it. And I got to be honest with you, man. And I'm willing to be honest when I need to be. I was shocked at how bad it was.
Really?
Oh, man, it really sucked. Oh, man, it was awful. It wasn't at all like I remembered it. It was really disheartening. And, the way that things go on this show, like, I just love reliving my youth over and over again with all these things. And very rarely do I go back and watch something that I haven't seen in 35 years or 40 years or whatever. And I go back and watch it and I just realize, oh my God, it's terrible. But it was not good. It really sucked. Oh man. I would say outside of Lauren Green, the actors weren't very good in it. Although you would be shocked at how beautiful Jane Seymour was as a younger woman, that stood out to me. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. She's still beautiful, but man, she was something in that. But the movie was really, really crappy. Like, I will admit when stuff from my generation isn't as good as I remember it, and this one definitely falls into that category, Yancy. Oh man, it was not good. But I will say one thing though, like that has not stood the test of time. But one movie that has stood the test of time, in my opinion anyway, is Back to the Future. I loved it when I was young. I still think it's awesome. So why don't we get started?
Toga.
As a millennial, how offensive is that scene?
Blatant chauvinism and sexism and voyeurism and spying on girls.
Otis loves us.
What's the movie? Is it Porky's or Corky's? I can't remember.
We're the only white people here.
This movie is incredibly vulgar. It's raunchy. It's ribald.
Well, could you also get 4 dates from my friends?
You know that it's morally reprehensible.
This is a millennial versus Gen X thing.
I'm very, very, very polished, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, so Yancy, I had you go back and watch the 1985 Gen X staple film, Back to the Future, because you had mentioned on a previous show you'd never seen it. And so I was so surprised I wanted you to go back and watch it. So you are a millennial. I'm making you watch all these old movies. This one is one that is really beloved by an entire generation. So first impressions on the movie, never having seen it before, go ahead.
Back to the Future is very good. It's super entertaining. It's a lot more clever than I had anticipated. I kind of wish there were more Christopher Lloyd in it. I thought Michael J. Fox, I've never really seen him in a film when he was that young. I think most of my exposure to him was in stuff that was much, much later, like Spin City or some of his other work. So it was really weird kind of seeing that same voice, which is pretty iconic. And you can hear Michael J. Fox doing like voiceover work on anything, you know that it's him. But to see him in basically like a kid's body, I thought it was really interesting. But altogether, like a really, really fun movie that didn't go as I had expected at all. Just like with the plot itself, and I've seen little bits and pieces of it, just through YouTube clips or people referencing it or whatever. But I've never watched the whole movie. It was a much different film than I had anticipated, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that you did. So Michael J. Fox, let's touch base on him for a minute. So first of all, obviously, I love this movie as well. I agree with you. I think it's clever. I think it's a lot of fun to watch. I want to talk to you a little bit about how dated it is, but starting with Michael J. Fox. So it's funny because this is where we differ a little bit, right? Because you're looking at him going, oh, I'm so used to seeing him older. Like, because when he did stuff like, I think it was like Boston Legal and stuff like that, like later on, right? After he really came down with Parkinson's and he still continued to act. So your generation kind of thinks of him as that. And then you see him in this and go, whoa, he looks so different, right? To me, this is Michael J. Fox. So Michael J. Fox, you got to put things in perspective of the time. So you go back in time to 1985. Let's go back to the past for a minute, shall we, Yancy? So in 1985, at the time, he played a character called Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. So Family Ties was a sitcom. I'm sure you've heard of it. You've probably never seen it. Have you ever seen it or no?
I haven't seen it, but is this the one where like he is like in the Young Republicans Club kind of thing?
Yeah. So what it is basically, it's really cool. Like it was a really popular show, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. So in it, his parents are Stephen and Elise Keaton, and they're like these 60s flower children, and they're like involved in the Peace Corps and the whole sexual revolution of the 60s and all that stuff. And then they get married, and their son turns out to be a staunch conservative. Now, I should point out though, 80s conservatism, much different from the current conservatism, that's going on. Like right now, it's just a bunch of angry people looking to blame others for their faults, right? But back in the 80s, there were these conservatives that were actually interested in stuff like fiscal responsibility and like a hardline stance against Russia. And they were advocates of a more powerful like American influence and, abroad and things like that. But anyway, the thing is like, it is really tough to pull off a character like that and make him likable. But that's exactly what he did. And he's an amazing actor. So anyway, he was Alex P. Keaton, Michael J. Fox was, and he was just you're not supposed to like this guy, but you can't help but like him. He's just such a likable, like, what an actor, right? So he's this like breakout TV star in 1985. And then all of a sudden it comes along and he's in this like high premise new movie about time travel. And it just all worked out so well. It's a clever script, it's a great movie. And so where Family Ties kind of made him a star, Back to the Future made him a household name. And so at the time, him being in this movie was just huge. And the cool thing is, as an aside, he wasn't originally cast in this movie. So the original actor was Eric Stoltz. You know Eric Stoltz? Does that name ring a bell?
I only do simply because you're just blasting my trivia questions for tonight. But yeah, sure.
Sorry. So Eric Stoltz, you probably know best from Pulp Fiction. Okay, so he's the guy with the heroin, right? And he was back in the 80s. He did some stuff too. He did like Some Kind of Wonderful and Mask. Not The Mask with Jim Carrey, but Mask with Cher. And he plays Rocky Dennis. But anyway, he was originally cast, and they started shooting. And the dailies started to come back, and the studio looked at it and were like, whoa. Eric Stoltz is a wonderful actor. Don't get me wrong. He's done a lot. He's had a wonderful and very diverse and very prolific career as an actor, but he just couldn't nail the comedy. He just couldn't get it. It wasn't there in his performance.
Did they actually bring him in?
Yeah, they started shooting the movie. They were shooting the movie,
okay.
And the dailies are coming back to the studio. And the studio head, the producers are looking at these dailies going, this kid's not getting it. Like, it's just not working out. Like, we're in trouble here. We need somebody who can get the underlying nuances of this film is the comedy. It really, really is. And he just wasn't getting it. And I think one of the key things, and I think you can find it like on a DVD or even on YouTube somewhere, the scene where he is in the soda shop and his quote unquote, his dad as a young teenager is there. And he realizes that it's his dad, and just the look on his face when he just didn't get it. And then if you juxtapose that with Michael J. Fox playing the scene, Michael J. Fox almost falls off the stool, and just the look on his face, and his hair is disheveled, and it's just, he got it. It. So it was just, Michael J. Fox was so good. So
really quickly, just to touch on that point, have we ever, I know we bring this up a lot where we talk about people who were almost cast in that role or who initially were and it didn't work out. Yep. You know, that's something that you and I'm interested in it. I think it's kind of cool to see, you know, almost like an alternate history to see what could have been. Mm-hmm. And every time we always talk about it, we think like, you know, what would you think about this actor or this actress playing in that role? And it never seems like it would work out.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of a movie where I'm like, oh yeah, I like this movie, but you know what? I would like it better with a different actor. Like, I mean, do you think there's something to that, to where, you know, if you like a movie, like, we're just incapable of swapping out different lead actors or actresses? Like, is there something to be said about that? Just that, like, don't break something or don't try to change something that you know to be good?
Yeah, I mean, I use that terminology all the time with you when I say don't remake movies. Don't fix it. It's not broke, right? But I think let's put it like this, for classic, you know, quote unquote classic movies or Gen X movies, it's a little harder because they have been around for so long. But I've done it multiple times with movies that I've seen, old ones as well as newer ones. You'll notice a lot of times when you give me a movie to watch, I'll be like, wow, I thought it was miscast. I think, what was the last one we did? Contact. When we talked about that movie Contact, I felt that the two lead characters, the actors were miscast in that movie. Mm-hmm. I thought that other actors would have done a lot better in those roles. So I think sometimes that's the case. But I think when it comes to a lot of these kind of movies, especially when they become iconic films, like, you couldn't picture anyone else being in these roles. You know what I mean? Especially a movie like this and the thing is, to me, casting is a funny creature, because it's usually one way or the other. You usually don't find too many films where the casting is really, really good and then there's like one miscast person. It's like everybody just fits their roles so perfectly, or something's just not quite right across the board. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I find. But yeah, no, I think about that all the time. And we kind of do deep dives into our movies here on the podcast. And that's something that I always love to talk about, are people that were originally cast or were thought of to play a part, and then, like, you just couldn't imagine them playing the part. You know, and that's definitely the case here. Any other takeaways from the film? So you said it was clever. But the thing is, and what, I don't want to wreck any more trivia, but I mean, it was nominated for an Oscar for the screenplay, best original screenplay, because it was a sharp script, right? But what about how dated it is or isn't? I'd like to know your thoughts on that, because if you're watching the movie, a lot of the jokes in the movie take place or kind of are rooted in the fact that he goes back to 1955 and he has all these like 80s references that they don't get. Because they're they totally don't get, and we'll get into some of them. But now watching it at you for the first time as a millennial, does the movie itself seem dated?
It does seem dated, but I'm okay with it. They kind of beat that to, like, they really use that a lot, like referencing different things, like, you know, whenever he's trying to open up like his glass Pepsi bottle, and, you know, his dad grabs the bottle and like shows him like the can opener on the side, like little things like that where it was really subtle, and it's not like an overt, like, you know, tie back to like the future, or you know, the way things used to be kind of thing. It's not like in your face, like, oh, that's how in 1985 we do it. I really appreciated those where it was just, it was kind of like in the background. You don't really notice it unless you're actually paying attention. It's the overt, like over the top, like guitar solo at the prom. You know what I mean? Where it's just so much. He's like, you know, it doesn't fit in. Like, this guy is basically, you know, he's terrified. He's trying to get back to 1985. You know, there's all this stuff going on. He you know, there was violence and all these things, but, you know, they throw in like this, like, you know, 2.5-minute guitar solo where he's completely shredding and playing the guitar behind his head and all these different things. Like, oh, well, your kids will love it. You know what I mean? That part, it's almost like too bombastic. It's almost too intentional, and it's like it's forced on you. That particular stuff, I don't think. I don't know.
But just as an aside, now that the importance of that scene to me has been a couple things. Number one, it's like he actually is the revolution, or he's the person that sort of starts rock and roll, right? Because he's playing that song, and then the guy in backstage is like, hey, he's on the phone to his cousin Chuck Berry, and he's like, hey, listen to this. So it's almost like but here's the key thing with that scene is the very first scene in the movie is him going to the prom, if you remember, and there's all the people that are doing the audition for hiring the band. And he tries out, and he's playing, if you listen to it at the beginning, he's playing like a kind of a, you know, kind of a freestyle version of Power of Love. And they're like, no, it's too loud. And his dream was to play at the prom. He loves to play. And remember the first scene too, where he turns the guitar on and gets blown away, and guitar is his thing, right? And like, especially like excessive guitar is his thing. And so to finally at the end get the chance to get on stage, whether or not there was just a fight, whether or not there was all this stuff going on, and he jumped up on stage, he finally got to play guitar in front of a crowd, and he was just going to put all of his energy into it. That's what I took from it.
True. I guess I mean, I did see the part where he auditions and stuff. I must have just overlooked that and just saw it as like a weird scene that they had stuck in for no reason. It was like very Ferris Bueller-esque. You know what I mean? Whenever like I don't know. I didn't dislike it. It felt so out of place. But I guess whenever you harken back to that original scene, it was kind of, they introduced something like him not being able to play in front of a crowd, and they rectified that. There was a resolution to it by him actually getting to do that at prom. But so I guess that does make sense. And
then the scene when he dresses up in his like, he's got like a hazmat suit or whatever he was wearing. Remember when he was doing the experiment with Doc, and then he went back to the future, and then he puts it on, and he's got the Walkman. And he puts the headphones on his dad laying in bed, and he pushes the button.
It's Van Halen.
And plays Eruption by Van Halen, right? And so in 1985 in the movie theater, like, this made a lot of people laugh. And it was a huge joke because we couldn't, as an audience, imagine what it would be like for a person from the 50s to be laying in bed and to wake up with a Walkman in their ears blasting Eruption. Like, a Walkman? What's that? You know, and like, and now it's funny now, you watching it as a millennial are probably like, what the hell's a Walkman? What the hell is that thing? What's a cassette tape? You know what I mean? But there was that. The other one too in that scene is when he says, "I'm Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan."
Vulcan, yes.
Again, he's just throwing like these 80s references in, right? And then the whole idea of the skateboard. Remember, he takes like the kid's got like a wooden scooter thing, and he breaks it and he turns it into a skateboard. People are like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then the other one that stuck out to me was when he uses the word heavy. You know, he's like, oh, this is heavy. And then Doc's like, weight has nothing to do with it. What are you talking about? And then again, later on, he says heavy. He goes, you keep using that word heavy. Like, why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull or something? Like, so, and that's just heavy was a word people used in the 80s, right? So, I don't know. There was a lot of things like that. I also like the other one that stands out to me, is when they're in the soda shop and he says, yeah, can I get you something? And Marty says, yeah, I'll have a Pepsi free. And the guy's like, you want a Pepsi? You're paying for it. Oh, all right, well, just give me a tab. Well, I can't give you a tab unless you order something. She says, well, just give me something without sugar in it. He gets a black coffee. You know, like, so it's just, there was 80s references there that are probably very dated by, today's standard. But you didn't find the dating to be too distracting in any way for you?
No, I didn't. I mean, it's basically like a time capsule piece. Like you look back at this, and because it was in the 80s, they're going to amplify the fact that he is coming from 1985 even more so than you would see in a typical movie where the background is just the background. You know what I mean? They're not trying to drive constantly that this guy is from the future. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like I'm willing to accept that going into it, because you understand that the whole theme of the movie is time travel. So what point would it be bringing a guy from the future if you're not going to reference the era that he came from? So like I was honestly pretty okay with it.
Oh, okay, that's good. What about the DeLorean? Did you find the DeLorean to be an interesting choice of car, I guess?
It is. Weird story. I went on a summer vacation with my family years and years ago. I think I was maybe 12 or 13, something. We have a bunch of family up in Indiana and Ohio, and I can't remember which state of the two it was, because they're interchangeable. I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off when I say this, but two pretty forgettable Midwestern states as far as Ohio and Indiana goes. Very undiscernible between the two. But we went to a car museum in one of these vacations, and they had the AMC there. They had the DeLorean. And the guy said, funny story, he's like, this car is the only car in this entire museum where we have hundreds and hundreds of cars that is worth less today than it was when it first came out.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That is very interesting. Yeah. And he's like, obviously it's kind of like there's a small demand for it. It has a little bit of a collector value just because people like the novelty of having, it from the movie. But as a standalone car, I guess it was kind of a POS. But I thought it was an interesting choice. Like, it's quirky. They could have gone with some sort of sports car or, some A-Team van or something. But the fact that it's just a DeLorean, I think it's really kind of interesting. There's lots of little decisions that they make within this movie that does kind of make it its own thing. And I kind of like that it's unique in that sense.
Yeah, they wanted to go with a Ford Mustang for the movie, and Ford actually came along and offered them money for product placement, and they said no. They went with the DeLorean. But the DeLorean's interesting because and somebody actually in my neighborhood here in Canada drives around in one of those, in one of the DeLoreans. And I think it's interesting.
Daily driver, like...
Well, I guess I can hear it because it's got such a unique sound. It reminds me of like a Lamborghini. Like a Lamborghini has that kind of really unique sound, when it's driving. And a DeLorean has a funny sound like that too. And the thing with the DeLorean Motor Company that makes that, again, it's kind of cool because it dates the movie somewhat, right? Because it's a very 80s thing. So back in the 80s, John DeLorean was this guy that came along and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to start up my own motor company. And like people like, you're crazy. People don't start up your own motor company. There's like the big motor vehicle companies, and that's it. You don't compete against them, right? So he comes along, decides he's going to make this, and it was like this kind of weird car. It was really low to the ground, like the doors opened up. It was a high pitched, sound to the car. And then what happened was the 80s being what they were is he got busted for cocaine, and it just absolutely killed the company. Like it just killed it. But it's just so funny that like a DeLorean, even at the time, I think the line in the movie was the doc is like, well, if I'm going to build a time machine, I got to do it in style, and because at the time, I think a DeLorean was considered stylish, for a very small period of time.
That's interesting.
So that's one of the reasons why they picked it, right? So a couple of themes in the movie I wanted to touch base. One that always stands out to me when I watch this is just this whole idea of having sort of a child having to be involved in like raising their parents. Because like he has to go back in time and he has to point them in the right direction, right? He has to help them with their confidence and like teach them to stand up for themselves and all this, which is a very interesting thing.
He doesn't have to. He has to undo what he's already done. So I think he's going into it, correct me if I'm wrong, like he's just trying to skate by, and then he realizes that he may have already altered history. So now he's having to force himself on them and kind of redirect things to like make sure that he is still in existence whenever he comes back, or his siblings are. So like it wasn't his initial intention to do any type of like character development.
No, absolutely, you're right.
Correction, right?
It was just because of when he was walking down the street, he got hit by the car, and they took him in, and it happened to be his grandpa that took him in, and his mother, who then falls for him, and he has to get her to not fall for him because he has to get her to fall for the dad, or else, him and his brother and sister will never exist, right? Mm-hmm. And so, he's got to, but the funny thing is, then he's got to help his parents along the way, right? He's got to get his dad's confidence up. He's got to like, teach him to like fight back against Biff and all this stuff, and be able to, actually put it together a coherent sentence, when he's trying to teach him to say, what's the line? You're my destiny. But he's like, you're my density. You're my density. It's just so funny. And Crispin Glover, such a bizarre human being. Just to go back a bit, just as an aside, Crispin Glover was on one time. Now, Crispin Glover is the guy that played his dad, right? I remember one time I used to watch Letterman, and you're a Letterman fan, right?
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So I used to watch Letterman all the time when I was a teenager. I just thought he was great. And I remember Crispin Glover being on there one time and like threatening to kick him in the face. he's like, I could kick you in the face, Dave. And he was like standing up and like swinging his foot at him. Like he's out to lunch. Like he's as crazy as they come. But if you can find a way to contain him like Zemeckis did and able to just deliver it, in a performance, like he was really good in this part. Don't you think? Like I thought his dad was fantastically cast. He was just this weird, quirky dork. So no, I really liked him.
I like the fact that he doesn't act like anybody else in the movie.
No,
he is completely his own character. He's not assimilated to like the culture at all. He is, he sticks out like sorely as like his own individual. Nobody else acts like him. He doesn't talk like anybody else. He doesn't even really put up much of an effort to kind of blend in. And I like that. And
it's also interesting how, the one thing, being able to do one thing in your life can alter the future. And in this case, being able to stand up to Biff and punch him changed everything. Because if you remember originally when they were in the present day, quote unquote, the future, like his mom was overweight and she looked really old, and his dad didn't have a lot of money and wasn't successful at work and all
still
this,
really insecure
and
being hazed
and everything.
Biff
and Biff was coming over and making him wash his car still all these years later, and being able to stand up to him and punch him at the dance and stand up for the girl that he liked changed everything. So now, like, she looks good and he looks good and they've got money and his new book is in, and he's now like a writer of science fiction, and Biff now has to come over, and Biff is now bald and has to like wash his car, and it's just so funny, like this such a quirky little thing.
So while we're on this, because this actually brings up a bunch of different stuff that I did want to bring up. So
go for it. Yeah.
So you're talking about like, how one little thing, that one little course correction, all of a sudden, his dad had this confidence to basically be himself and to become this famous writer. The mom is healthy. The dad is healthy. And then even like the roles are reversed. So you've given me – there's a lot of things I want to say. You've given me a lot of stuff before about you thought Interstellar was super boring, right? But one thing that I always, hearkened back to and really appreciated about Interstellar was while it wasn't perfect scientifically, they did make an attempt at making it a somewhat coherent science movie, especially as it relates to time and space, right? This movie I don't think makes any attempt at that, and I think it's okay. I think that's fine because they're upfront about it. What with like plutonium and flux capacitors and all these different things. And it kind of bothered me the fact that like he brings a photo of his family into the past with him, and the images will literally fade out and disappear as history is being course corrected, which that is some really problematic science.
His hand disappears as he's playing the guitar, remember?
Right. That's really, really problematic. But I get that it's a movie and it's not trying to be accurate. I understand that. And I'm bouncing around a lot, but I'm trying to get all these thoughts out of my head that I wrote down. So there is the one scene where
so can I jump in with something for you? If you really like that, because you're mentioning like this movie didn't do it really, really well in terms of course correcting the future. But if you really like that, I'll give you one. It's a Millennial film. It's from 1999. It's not even American. It's a German film. And the director was Tom Tykwer, and it's called Run, Lola, Run. Okay, so I'm going to give you a Millennial film. And what it is the whole movie is about what if one little tiny thing in your day you did differently, how would it change the future?
I'm getting goosebumps. This is like 100% my type of movie.
You would absolutely love this. We should flip the podcast on its head at sometime in the future, and I will nominate a Millennial film for you that you would love. And that is one. Let me tell you, like I say, it's German. It's got subtitles, but it is phenomenal, especially in terms of action and all the things that are going on in it. But the whole idea is, what if you just were nice to somebody, or if you were this or that, or what if you tried to do this, or if you just bumped into somebody, or you came around the corner a second early and accidentally grazed somebody, how would it change their life, and how would the future change?
Well,
you'd be blown away.
That very premise, that's H.G. Wells' The Time Machine,
right,
where they go back in time. I may be misremembering, but they kill a butterfly. And that is the only thing that they have basically done whenever they did time travel. But when they come back to present day, the Earth is completely desolate. So it plays on that same premise that, just the slightest little, adjustments here or there can, compound and lead to super, super big things. Even in East of Eden, just to talk about the book that we were just talking about at the top of the show, there were people who genuinely believed back in the 1915 through 1920 era during World War I that all of the gunfire was causing droughts in Salinas, California. Like that was something that people thought, you know what I mean? That everything was so interconnected like that. But so trying to bring this all back, I know it's all over the place, but talking about how little things make differences and stuff like that.
Yes.
Some of the things I thought were really, it was almost too much for me, where like whenever Biff's character is basically trying to, sexually assault, trying to rape Michael J. Fox's character's mom. Sorry, I can't remember the characters' names. I haven't watched it as much as you have. But so that's really problematic in and of itself, right? He's a bully. He beats the piss out of people. And then he literally tries to rape this woman. And then we go back into the future knowing that all of those things had happened. And you welcome this guy to like, you give this guy work. This guy is washing your car. You're comfortable with him around your family, like stuff like that. I was like, okay, like they're not thinking about this practically at all. They're not seeing that this is real life, whatever. This is Hollywood. Like that's the type of thing that would never happen. Nobody called the cops. In fact, the guy still works for him. I thought that was a little problematic. And just like the back and forth stuff where everything still kind of works out in the end. And I was thinking, well, this isn't really how like the hero's journey works. Like it's not supposed to be, everything completely works out in the end. Like what are they trying to say? And I was a little relieved at the end of the movie whenever the doc actually does come back and he says, oh, you guys turned out great, but I got to talk to you about your kids.
Right.
And so it does kind of set it up almost as like I'm pretty sure there's a Back to the Future too, right? There is a sequel to this and it sets up the sequel. But it kind of leaves a little bit of uncertainty, ambiguity, like what actually happens, what happens in the future. And it sets it up to where you could have a million of these movies if you wanted to. So there's really not a question there. It's just me trying to like spin out ideas. But like, I mean, are you okay with how loose they are as far as what he's able to get away with, what doesn't actually change the course of time versus what does? Like, what are your thoughts on all of that? Like, this could have been a much, much different movie, I thought. I was expecting where the doctor and him were both going back in time together and jumping forward and going back and jumping forward. I didn't expect it to be he goes back in time one time and then comes back and that's it. So like maybe dissect some of those piece by piece. I know I threw a lot of.
So a couple things. So where do I start with this? The sequels I'll come back to because I've got an interesting revelation to make about the sequels that you're just going to want to hear. In terms of being able to go back in time and really sort of change the course of history and how it, all goes about and whether or not Doc should have went back with him. Okay, a couple things. So number one, don't forget, remember, this isn't a millennial film like Interstellar that's 3 hours long and has like 10 million layers to it, okay? It's a comedy at its heart, and it's a lot of fun to watch, right? It's just a fun movie. So
can you tell I struggle with that?
Yes, you do. And you know what?
Okay.
Sometimes you just got to kind of let it go and just go along for the ride. I think if you just go along for the ride with this movie, you are going to really enjoy yourself. I think if you overthink this movie, you're not going to enjoy it as much. So that might be at play. Number two, Doc couldn't go back in time with him because one of the points is when he goes back is he's trying to convince the Doc to warn him that the Iranian terrorists are going to shoot him.
Right.
Remember, and he's got to tip him off to let him know. And in fact, obviously it does work because then when he goes back, he wore a bulletproof vest. He taped the
letter together.
Yeah,
right?
and he wore a bulletproof vest, right? So there is that. So there's that. And in regard to the sequels, the revelation that I'd like to make, and this might surprise some people, maybe not you, but maybe some people. I have never seen Back to the Future 2 or Back to the Future 3.
How is that possible?
So and this is why, I think, because I really love this movie a lot. Like I say, I saw it in the movie theater when it came out. I was just, I loved it. I really loved Family Ties at the time. I really liked Michael J. Fox. He's Canadian too. So there's so many things going on that I really liked about him as an actor. And so I really love this movie a lot. And for me, I know the way it ends at the end, like you said, the Doc's like, hey, we got to go to the future. It's your children. It's your kids, But to me, like, that was kind of funny. And then they take off and the car flies, right? So it's like, oh, in the future, cars fly. But to me, it wrapped up and it was done. There was no more story to tell as far as I was concerned. Like, it was kind of a neat ending, but that was it. So I liked this movie the way it was. I felt it was a perfect little package. And I had no desire to see a sequel or a third one. And you got to remember, too, back then, and I still think it holds true today, sequels are almost always inferior to the first ones. Now, I know I've heard good things about 2. I've especially heard good things about 3. But that being said, I've never had any desire to watch either one of them. And to this day, I still haven't.
That's really interesting, Chris.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
And this goes true for a lot of Gen X movies. There are tons of sequels out there, and a lot of them I haven't seen. Because I just no desire to. Meatballs is one of my favorite movies of all time. I've said that a zillion times. They've made Meatballs 2, Meatballs 3, Meatballs 4, Meatballs 5. I've never seen any of them. Revenge of the Nerds, I loved. Revenge of the Nerds 2, Revenge of the Nerds 3, I haven't seen any of them.
Well, I mean, I get the sentiment with you. Like, you know, for The Matrix, for instance, I talk about The Matrix every other show. Take a shot, guys. I don't like what they did with the other movies. You know what I mean? I don't think they're the worst movies I've ever seen, but they do take away a little bit from the mystique of the movie. You know what I mean? What I view as a perfect standalone film, it lessens it. It does cheapen it. And, you know, there's a part of me that wishes I could go back and not have seen those movies and just left them as they were. You know what I mean? As like its own separate thing that I don't have to visit, because it does take away some of that magic. So I 100% understand what you're saying.
So one of the criticisms that I've always heard about this movie, and I want to throw this out to you and see what your thoughts are on it, are the relationship between Doc and Marty. So I guess the idea being that why is there this, you know, kind of wizardry like old man scientist who lives alone and has all this quirky inventions and stuff? Why is he friends with like a teenage boy? And why does a teenage boy go over to his house all the time and like have a key to his house and go in there and all this? And I've never really put a lot of thought into it because it's just a fun movie. You know, and like I said, and sometimes you just got to put things aside and just go along for the ride and have a lot of fun. So I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this because it's been from millennials that I've heard this criticism. So I wanted to kind of put it back to you and say, was that something that kind of struck you as being odd, or did it ever come up at all? Or now that I've mentioned it, do you have any thoughts on it?
It didn't occur to me at first. Whenever, you know, you're first introduced to him, he goes into the guy's house and, you know, he hasn't been there for a while and there's piles of dog food just lining up. So I didn't think of it at first, like, what is his actual relationship to this guy? How is he connected to him? And I didn't think it was weird until what's his mom's name?
Lorraine, isn't it?
Whenever Lorraine shows up back in 1955, she shows up to the doctor's house, and Michael J. Fox's character is there, and she's like, "Who's this?" And he's like, "It's Doc." "Oh, it's my uncle." And like that weird, like, why wouldn't you just say like, "Oh, this is a friend of mine," or "This is a doctor"? You know, why the weird? You know, almost like covering up the fact that it's just like a man that you're not actually related to. You know what I mean? So like, it actually did kind of make it weird. And then at that point, I was like, yeah, that is kind of weird. Like, what is the relationship with this? But I mean, beforehand, no, I didn't think of anything. I don't know if you have a theory as far as that goes, but it is one of the weirder, like, unexplained relationships. But I don't think that's uncommon in Hollywood, where they'll put two unlike people together, and you're just supposed to accept the fact that these people have some sort of relationship together.
Oh yeah, and I mean, the chemistry between those two lead characters was so incredible that it drives the film. It really, really does. They're both going to be at Fan Expo this year in Toronto. I'd like to make it down, but I probably won't be able to because I can only get to do one or the other. You know, I can only get out so much because I'm a busy guy. And I really want to go see Fonzie at the Hamilton Comic-Con this year. So I think I might go there. But because I did meet Christopher Lloyd. I got a chance to meet Christopher Lloyd backstage at the last Fan Expo. It was really cool and got a chance to talk to him briefly. But this one is going to be Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox are both going to be there at this summer's. But like I say, yeah, the chemistry between them is so strong, and Christopher Lloyd is so good. The whole scene when they're trying to, like, the clock tower and they're trying to connect the wire and drive across at just the right time, and just the chemistry between them and the energy, almost this manic energy that Christopher Lloyd brings to the role. It's just almost otherworldly. Like, he's so good, and you don't realize. I wish
there were more of him. I really wish there were more of him.
So good. Oh man, is he a good actor? And like when you go back and watch this, and I watched this probably a couple months ago. This is the last time I saw it, and I introduced it to my son. I let him watch it, and he loved it and thought it was great. And even my wife and I were watching and laughing at Christopher Lloyd's performance because it was just so energetic and just he put so much into it. Like, he really is on his own plane, that guy. But he's just perfect, you know, in this role. But overall, what would you give it as a rating if you had to go back and give it a rating out of 10? What do you think?
I liked it a lot. I think it's rewatchable, Chris. I think it's clever. You know, I love Michael J. Fox in it. I love Lloyd in it. You know, like you mentioned Crispin Glover, he's really interesting. He really stands out as like the oddest character, like the oddest casting choice in the film, but it works. I'm not saying like it doesn't work. Leah Thompson, I almost feel like she deserved better in this film. She's young, she's beautiful, she's a great actress, she's totally believable. But it is such a weird dynamic with her basically being like sexually attracted to her son.
I know that's
like,
the whole
like
thing,
even me, like I thought you were going to mention this yourself, but like I'll bring it up. Like that was one of the weirdest parts of this entire movie. It really was weird. And when she actually kisses him, I'm like, oh my God, this is so painful. But I actually like how they kind of they rectified that by saying like it was her that was like, you know what, this doesn't feel right. This feels like I'm kissing my brother or something, as opposed to him having to say, you know, basically like either being mean to her and trying to get her to intentionally not like him, or him having to like spill the beans and say that he did actually, you know, he's a time traveler, I'm your son kind of thing. That could have completely ruined the movie. But I like the fact that it was her that realized that there was a different type of connection there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And not actually having to like expose her to that. But I think it's a good movie. I think it's an entertaining movie. I don't mind that it's dated. I think it's funny and clever. And it was really kind of refreshing to see Michael J. Fox young and vibrant and healthy. And
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of heartbreaking now. I mean, it's no secret. Everybody knows that he's dealt with Parkinson's for a long time. He's a huge, vocal activist for the disease. And it's nice seeing him like that at his best, riding skateboards and doing stunts and stuff. I really enjoyed it. But it is kind of heartbreaking too. At the same, the same breath.
But it was cool, because like I said before, that was when he was on top of his game.
Yeah.
Like he really, really was.
Yeah, so it's nice to see that and just view it as itself. And this is a roundabout way of saying, like, I'll give this like a really high 7, like a 7.9. Cool. I didn't absolutely love it. I wasn't, just completely blown away. But it is rewatchable. It's really entertaining. It's really funny. It's really clever. If they had implemented more Christopher Lloyd in this, it may have been pushed up even higher because he plays the part extremely, extremely well. But overall, though, a really good movie. And I see why it's kind of, I don't know, everybody I talk to, like, this is one of their favorite movies, especially people of your age kind of thing. My parents, I don't know how much they were into it, but I know that this is like one of those movies that has just a lot of staying power, like a Star Wars or, like any other movie of the era, basically. But what would you give it if you had to? I know you love it a lot.
Yeah, I would give it an 8. And it's funny, you give it a high 7, 7.9. I give it an 8. So I think we're both right on the same level. Like, I like this movie a lot. It's really, really good. But it definitely falls into the movie category. Like, it's just an entertaining, a lot of fun to watch. You know what I mean? I really like this movie a lot. It is definitely enjoyable. And it was really cool, too, like I said, when I got a chance to show it to my son, and my son felt it was just as good. Like he really enjoyed it, too. And the fact that we got to go down to Fan Expo, I took my son with me and got a chance to meet Christopher Lloyd, was exciting. So yeah, 8. I like this movie a lot. It has a special place in my heart, as it does with most Gen Xers, I believe. But anyway, so that being said, I think it's time now to have some
fun with Yancy.
Okay, Yancy, so this is my movie. I nominated this for the podcast this week, so it's over to you. You got some trivia for me?
I do have some trivia. As always, I had to take a bunch down just because you know so much about the movies. I've tried to stay away the last couple of trivia segments where I had to quiz you. I've tried to stay away from the IMDb's and some of the more mainstream publications where they would have trivia questions or like little snippets about the movie or the development or production, because I mean, to your credit, all that stuff. You know what I mean? And you've been researching that stuff and being completely immersed in like the backstories to all these films for as long as they've come out. So it makes it really challenging for me to try to do trivia for you, and I think you've realized this. When I was watching the film a couple days ago, I started taking notes on like little things to see, as opposed to just asking you questions about casting or awards that they won or that type of thing, seeing if you can notice things that were in the movie. You mentioned earlier product placement and talking about how like the Ford Mustang, like Ford really wanted to do product placement with that. There were all kinds of other brands that you saw throughout there, and I don't know if they paid to be there or not, but they were definitely there. So some of the questions I have kind of pertain to that. All right. So one of the weird things, actually, let me see where I want to start this. So at one point, Marty's girlfriend hands him a handwritten number. It was the grandmother's number. And she says, to call me later because I'm going to be at my grandma's house. I know this is a long shot. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping, because they do like a really close pan of it and it's in the center of the screen and it stays there for a couple of seconds. Can you name the number of the grandmother and her number that she hands to Michael J. Fox's Marty McFly character?
Would it be 8675309?
That would be Tommy Two-Tone. That is incorrect. No, it was 555-4283. I know that's a little bit of a stretch, but for some reason I thought you could get it.
No, I was thinking maybe it was an 80s placement thing. That's why I went with it.
I wish that were so. That would actually have been much better, but no. All right, so question for you. What brand of beer does Biff take out of the McFly's fridge when he first comes in? So this is at the beginning of the movie. He just barges in.
Okay, I remember. Is it a Busch?
It's not a Busch.
Or a
It's
Pabst
actually a
Blue
Miller Lite.
Miller
and
Lite.
Then, interestingly enough, I don't think I would have noticed this had I not been looking for intentional, trivia questions. But so Biff comes out and he takes out a Miller Lite and he drinks it, right? Then later that night, they're shown during dinner, and the dad's drinking a Budweiser, which I don't know about you, but I have never been in a single household in my entire life where the dad or the family or whomever drinks multiple types of like mass-produced beer. It's one or the other. Like we're a Bud family, we're a Busch family, we're a Miller family, whatever. I just thought that was really interesting.
So it's a continuity issue with the filmmakers, I guess.
Correct. I noticed it just by happenstance, just because, like I said, I was looking for it.
Or they wanted to make more money on product placement with different brands.
There you go. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. So at one point, Chris, so whenever I first call you on Skype, I oftentimes, we mention Three's Company. Yes. I will either hum the Come and Knock on My Door. It's kind of like a, hey, Chris, what's up? It's audio making sure that my stuff works. There's another song that I often use a lot, too, and it is Mr. Sandman. Mr. Sandman does make an appearance in this movie. Can you name the original group that performed Mr. Sandman?
Oh, was it the Quartets? Is that...
It was the Quartets.
Oh,
wow.
This is like 50 stuff. And the only reason I know a lot of this 50 stuff, if I could, is the my wife's dad, so my father-in-law, every time I go to his house, all he does is play stuff from the 50s over and over and over. So I know it all, a lot of it, because of him. But anyway...
Did not expect you to get the Quartets, to be honest with you. But it was just funny, though, like just seeing that when I was watching the movie for the first time and hearing it. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I literally do that, maybe every other show, Chris, just I thought it was really funny just singing it into the mic. But
you do, yeah.
You guys don't always get to see that. Maybe sometimes we'll put in like the pre-recorded stuff that Chris and I talk about before we do trivia or anything. But so the band, you mentioned it earlier, whenever they saw Marty McFly playing the guitar and stuff, and he, because one of the people injured his hand on helping him get out of the trunk, and then they called Chuck Berry, and who knows, maybe he just gave it like a new birth to rock and roll as we know it. Can you name the band that actually performed during prom?
I can not only name the band, they were the Starlighters, weren't they? And it was Marvin Berry, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep, the Starlighters. Very nice.
Because he was like, this is your cousin, Marvin Berry. And that's when you realize, because he's like, hey, Chuck. And then you realize who it was. But
Well done. Okay, you're actually doing better on these than I kind of thought you would. So, all right. So
I love this movie a lot. And I've seen this movie a lot of times, too. So
how many times do you think you have seen it, honestly?
Oh, I don't know. Probably 20.
Oh, that's not that much. Yeah. That's not that much. Okay, I've probably seen the
maybe
Matrix
a bit more.
Times.
No, maybe a bit more than 20.
Okay, next question. What is the name that appears on the building that Marty crashes into upon returning to 1985? So it shows him smashing into the building, and there's a marquee sign up there. It is the name of a church, and there is a person's name on the building. Do you remember who the church is?
I can't remember it. Oh, no, I can't remember it.
Okay, it's Reverend John Crump, which I thought that was the best fake name I've seen in a movie. John Crump. I know that was a little difficult, and then obviously, like, there was the homeless guy. He makes the joke about like junk drivers or something like that. It was kind of weird and clunky, but.
And I also like the scene when he's in the soda shop, and then he makes a comment to the guy that's mopping the floor, and he goes, "You should be mayor one day." He's like, "Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna be mayor." And sure enough, he turns out to be the mayor, right?
I know, but so that's another instance of him like changing history. Did he become mayor sooner? Did he? You know what I mean? Like how
it was that inspiration, that made him want to run for mayor one day, right?
But he was already, like, we already saw in the film, we already saw all those billboards of like reelect the mayor, you know what I mean? And it was the same guy. So like he had already become mayor, and I don't know, like this is what's the problem with time travel movies is like you don't know, like is the present that we're living in now already taken into account that somebody went back in time and changed it? Exactly. Like we don't know. You know what I mean? It's really strange. But
cool.
I'll give you an easy one.
Sure.
Can you name me so we know Lorraine's character, Leah Thompson plays her.
Yes.
And of course she has her parents and stuff. Can you name their last name? What is the household's last name?
McFly. That's easy.
No, it's not.
Oh, you mean her maiden name was Baines, wasn't it?
Baines, correct. Right. Lorraine Baines. Let me see if I have any other more. I partly the problem is I always keep these. I I always keep my trivia questions separate. I was writing trivia as I was watching the movie and taking notes, so I'm literally having to like comb through pages and pages of notes. I'll give you one more. Can you name me the actor that played Mr. Strickland, the the guy who was ironically still bald even back in 1955?
Oh God, he looks like Donald Pleasance, but it's not Donald Pleasance. But I'll say Donald Pleasance, even though I know it's not him.
It's James Tolkien. His name looks super familiar, and I went looking into it, and I don't really recognize anything that he's from, but I have definitely seen him in like a bunch of movies. Like I think he was in Top Gun. He was in like some other smaller films like Heaven's Fall and Seven Times Lucky. But that felt like a character actor that I thought that you'd be all over. But I guess I got you on this one. But
yeah,
still, in all seriousness, Chris, a pretty good performance.
Yeah, no, he was good.
I'm talking about you with trivia.
Oh, thanks. Couple of cameo characters I just want to mention. Are we done with the trivia questions?
Yeah, we're done.
Okay, I have a couple of actors that kind of made appearances in this that I really like. Mark McClure, who played his brother Dave. I liked Mark McClure because he was also in the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, and he played Jimmy Olsen in that. And Wendy Jo Sperber was his sister, and I loved Wendy Jo Sperber. Oh man, she was on Bosom Buddies, the TV show, and she was in the movie Bachelor Party. Wendy Jo Sperber was also in the movie Moving Violations with Bill Murray's brother John. Oh man, she was great. And probably blink and you missed him. Casey Zamasco. I don't know if you know Casey Zamasco. Are you into the Top Gun movies?
I've never seen them.
He was into those, but I also really liked him. He did a movie called 12 O'Clock High that I thought was great. And he was one of the guys with Biff, one of his like henchmen. And one of the other guys was Billy Zane, who you probably didn't recognize because he wasn't bald and he wasn't on the Titanic. But, he just kind of little cameo roles in the movie that I thought were kind of cool. And then, of course, Jason Hervey played her brother. I guess it was the uncle, when he was young. And, you probably wouldn't know him, but I mean, he was in the Wonder Years.
Was he the one that ends up in jail?
Yeah, no, because the one that was in jail was in the crib. But he was the one at the table and he was wearing the coonskin hat. Remember, like he's from the Wonder Years. Okay. He's like the annoying the older brother. So there's a lot of like small parts, played by some pretty cool people. And of course, one of the smallest parts of all that you probably noticed or didn't notice was going back to that scene we talked about at the very beginning when Marty was trying out, playing the guitar and he wanted to be hired to play at the prom. Did you notice who the people were when they were sitting there giving him the audition? The one guy who pulls out the megaphone and says, "You're too loud." Do you recognize who that was? No.
I did not recognize it at all.
It was Huey Lewis himself. And the band that he was playing with, that Marty was playing with, that he was auditioning with, was actually the News. So it's just kind of little cameos.
Huey Lewis and the News.
Yeah,
I know cool. They played a lot of Huey Lewis in this movie, and I don't dislike Huey Lewis, but I also don't like him either.
Well, you got to think again. If you go back to 1985 when this came out, Huey Lewis and the News were huge. Like they had an album that came out called Sports, and it was really popular. Like there was like the Heart of Rock and Roll, and like there were some really popular songs on there. If This Is It, and all those songs that they had, and lots of videos. So they were a very popular band. So to get them in the movie too was a big deal. Let alone to have Huey Lewis playing a part right at the beginning, doing a cameo. And like people that were in the audience, we recognized it. I was like, hey, that's Huey Lewis. Oh my God, that's so cool. Oh my God, this movie is so awesome. So, it was all these little things. So anyway, I guess we'll wrap things up there. I'm glad to know that you liked it. We both liked it pretty much the same, 7.9 for you and an 8 for me out of 10. So that's always good. And next week, I guess we'll come back with one of our top 5 lists. We'll decide what that is. And we'll come back. Hopefully you enjoyed doing the show this week, Yancy. And I didn't kill you with a Gen X movie. You actually enjoyed this one. So that's good.
Minor little baby steps, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. You'll get there. And just like the thing is, it's just like you reading all these classic novels like Catcher in the Rye, which I'm so excited you're going to read that, and hopefully The Grapes of Wrath soon. You're also going to experience lots of great, classic movies, thanks to me. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, for sure.
But until next week, this is Chris McBrien for Yancy Eaton saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thank you for listening to the Pop Goes Your World podcast. Continue the conversation on Twitter @CMcBrien or @Yancy Eaton. Please consider leaving a review for the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.